You've been in and out of here all day. Ain't never need an invite then. Yeah, something ain't adding up.
Can I at least get my money?
Careful.
Smoke and Annie question why Cornbread needs to be invited back into the juke joint after leaving while some eerie and horrific things have been happening that night in the vampire horror thriller Sinners from director Ryan Coogler. All right, Brad.
All right.
This movie right here, when we did our most anticipated, was number 2 for me behind Superman. So.
Was this even in my top 10?
No.
Bad, Brad.
Yeah.
This is shameful. Shameful.
But we can rectify that.
Okay, let's do it right now.
We can rectify
Let's do it
that.
right now.
This movie is brilliant. What I loved about this movie, and we'll get to the vampire aspect of it, but like when you talk about like the first hour of this movie, when we're introduced to Smoke and Stack, when they go back to Mississippi from spending some time up in Chicago, how we get to live in this world, how we get to stay with these characters and really fall in love with these characters when everything kind of, goes up in the second half of this movie.
I so wish I knew nothing about this film going into it. This is the type of movie where I would love to go in blind at a film festival, and then an hour in, it switches up genres and have my mind blown.
Yeah.
I wish I could gift that to somebody.
I know.
Unfortunately, I can't. You got to market a film. You got to tell them something horrific is going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's a bummer, whatever. That being said, even knowing that there was going to be a turn in this film, the lead up to that turn is so enjoyable. The characters, the emotions, the filmmaking of that first hour, I was fully engaged, and I would say that the best scene in the entire movie
happens before any vampires even come into the story.
And it's one of the greatest cinematic feats I've ever seen in any movie.
Yeah, I mean, we can hint about it and talk about it a little bit.
I don't want to spoil that shot. Because I didn't know about that shot going into it and how it was going to connect to another supernatural element of the film.
Yeah.
And I found it extremely moving.
It was. And we saw this together, and it's funny, like going back to that first hour and going to your point as far as like not really setting everything up, setting the table as far as like living in this world. I remember like when you get like, there's a point in the movie where Smoke and Stack separate because they both have to kind of handle some stuff.
Yeah, can we just stop real quick?
Yeah.
Michael B. Jordan playing Smoke and Stack. And maybe for the first shot, you're thinking about how that's the same actor.
Yeah.
But after that first shot, seamless. Two human beings.
Yeah, I mean, he does a great job of really making each one of those characters extremely distinctive to themselves and a history for both of them that they both have. So you never think that, okay, this is just one actor playing twins. Like, they feel like two separate characters.
And the script is so smart. It doesn't spell everything out for you. They're coming back from Chicago. Something happened in Chicago. They've got Irish beer and Italian wine, and that's really all you need to know.
Yeah.
But you get this sense of many other films that have come before Sinners.
Yeah, exactly. And we talked about that too, as far as like, and looking at Ryan Coogler and the things that he's inspired by and the things that he's kind of paying homage to, but really taking that and making it his own by really like infusing like a lot of cultural depth into this movie, into a genre movie.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about some of these different characters, because as much as we talk about Michael B. Jordan, to me, I feel like the standout is Miles Canton, if I'm saying his name correctly, this is his very first film. If you look on his IMDb, he has no other credits. So I'm assuming this must have been the casting call, and he steals this movie. And to me, he is the heart of the.
Well,
he's the heart
he carries the entire film on his shoulders.
Yeah,
and he's. I mean, he's not technically the first shot because we get a little bit of an exposition dump in the very beginning of the movie, setting up the mythology of the musicians who can connect time and space through song and performance. And then you get, Miles Canton in the first live action sequence of the film. And from that moment, this glorious car pulling up, after the events that we're about to watch occur, he is broken and bloody and beaten, and he's holding on to this guitar head, and he steps into his father's church. Like, just in that scene alone, which requires very little dialogue from him, the whole movie is there in his body, on his face.
On his face, yeah. And it grabs you as an audience. Like, in that first scene, like when he walks into that church and confronts his father, and he's holding that guitar, and you see his face and all the blood.
Yeah. And then that scene takes you through the entire first act of this movie, right? Like, you hold on to what happens a day after, right? So, what happened to bring
24
Preacher Boy to this moment? And now we get to see the buildup to it, and it's a slow buildup.
Yeah, it's an extremely slow buildup, and what I also love about that is that when we get back to that scene, because we go back to 24 hours to get back to that moment in the church, when we get back to that scene, the interaction that he has with his father and what his father is saying to him, as far as like in relation to him holding that broken guitar.
And I think one of the great things about the movie is that's not just a bookend, right? Because like when we come back, there's a lot more story
to go. But it's just like Ryan Coogler is speaking to so many different things, because even when we get to that end, like, we deal with everything with the vampires in that moment where it's kind of like a bottleneck thriller where everything starts to happen. And then all of a sudden, there's an element of the KKK with Smoke as well, if you've seen the trailers as well. And
a Tommy gun gets used.
Yeah, but how that ties into the greater overall story, and we get to that point because of how that whole segment with the vampires makes you feel. When you get to that point with the KKK and Smoke has to go against them, it's such a catharsis for the audience when we get there, that it's just
what Remick, the lead vampire, is offering, fellowship at this point in time in America, has some attraction to it, right?
It does.
And what's great about the script is the script gives Remick a motivation that is understandable in a lot of ways. And, when Remick sees what Preacher Boy has,
the
gift that he has, and how he wants to take that gift so that he can find some connection
to his
history, because he was robbed of something also. And we're really dancing into spoiler territory, and I don't want to spoil too much.
Not too much,
but there is a motivation for Remick that is not dismissible. And what's exciting about the movie is figuring out why the fellowship that he offers is villainous.
Is extremely villainous.
There's the obvious ways that it's villainous, but then there's the more subtle ways that it's villainous too.
And it's the temptation that he has, that lure that he has to want to kind of give them.
It's a movie, and pardon the pun, that has a lot to chew on, right?
It does.
On the first watch, you're thinking about it, you're kind of like riding the high of the experience. On my second watch, you really kind of dig into the themes and the larger story that's kind of floating above all of Sinners, and how that ultimately speaks to the present moment.
That's true.
And really delicious.
And what I love is like how these films are so layered, because like I've been like deep diving into everything Ryan Coogler has been talking about, whether it's interviews and everything like that. And one of the things that someone asked him is like, what is your biggest takeaway that you want from this? And he literally said, I just want people to be entertained. And on that note, when I think about a filmmaker like Jordan Peele with Get Out, it's like Get Out is a film that is so deeply layered in so many different things that you can dive so deep into that movie. But also, as an audience member, if you just want to enjoy it as a horror thriller, you can enjoy it on that level.
I think
you can do the same thing.
I think you absolutely can, but I think Sinners does the thing that the best genre stories do, like Get Out, like The Twilight Zone, right? Where it tells you a fun, entertaining story, and you can think you're just having a good time at the movies, but you're actually learning something, and you're experiencing something. It's doing what Roger Ebert said that movies do. They're empathy machines.
Yes.
You are you are experiencing other people's points of view in this film, and it is turning some gears in your head.
Yeah, it's all in there.
Yeah.
It's all in there. And I don't want to take your point, because when we saw it and we did like our out of the theater reaction, and you had said something that had resonated with me, where you said like, Ryan Coogler is a filmmaker that is using genre, because we're fans of genre filmmaking. He's using genre to tell human stories.
Yes.
And that's something that you said. I don't want to steal that from you.
Steal it. Steal it. I'm sure I'm not the first person to say it.
But it's something that you said, but you're right. It's like, to take genre filmmaking, something that we love. I mean, we're geeks in this stuff, and we love horror, we love sci-fi, but to take that and to really take and tell a human story, to have a human experience.
Yeah, and then to embrace the medium in which the story is being told.
Yes.
Right? Like, Coogler shows what a movie can do with Sinners. This is not a film that you can adapt into a novel, a comic, a short story.
No.
This has to be told cinematically.
Yeah.
You know, the sequence that I think is the most astonishing in this movie, that is a movie sequence.
Exactly, because that sequence shows you, it shows me the possibility and the capability of what the medium of film can do.
Yeah,
and
it is, you know, it's a wonder. You know, it's showing what cinematography does. It's showing what performance does. It's showing you how movies can mix the visual with the audible.
Yes,
and it is, you know, transformative.
Yeah,
and again,
transportive.
Transportive. Yes.
Yeah, it does. It takes you. I mean, when it happened in the theater, I mean, you can feel a gasp in the audience when that started to happen. It's like,
and you know, that exposition dump at the beginning where the movie is explaining to you the mythology around the song storyteller. And how that gets cut back into the beginning of that sequence.
Yes.
And then we get an edit with Delroy Lindo explaining the power of the blues.
Yes.
And then we get a little bit of a flashback.
Yeah.
And then how that stitches into the reveal of that sequence.
Yeah.
You know, when something comes into frame that shouldn't be there.
Yes. And
goosebumps and crying immediately.
That's what I'm saying, like how that dovetails right into what we were speaking to as far as like with Remick and everything else.
That sequence, this movie is also about the vitality of art, right? And how we need it in our daily lives. We cannot exist without art.
Yeah, we can't. We can't. We already know what the score is, but go ahead and say it.
Yeah, it's a B+, but it's also, I think, you know, it's certainly my favorite film of this year. And I would be stunned if a film beat this in my heart.
Yeah.
Now, I know Superman's coming, and I'm a mark for Superman. You know, that was my number one.
It was my number one, too.
And I love the trailers, and I'm sure I'm going to like Superman. But I think Sinners is something that you don't get too often. I think this is not only the best movie of this year, maybe my favorite movie of the last 5 years, maybe my favorite movie of the last 10 years.
Yeah. I have to chew on that, but you might have something there with that one, because this is a movie that is going to be, I'm going to be thinking about this one for a long while. So easily a B+. But
see it on the biggest screen possible.
Yeah, so those are our thoughts. One of the best movies of the year.
If you liked what you just saw,
then check us out on YouTube at PGC TV Online, and we'll see you at the movies.